Okay, we are in the category of a good talking to, and this presentation is called Can You Handle the Truth? First slide that's in front of you right now says the truth hurts, so when you ask for it, make sure that you can handle it. And I wanted to start just by reading a very short essay out of my book, The New 3Rs in Education, with the title by the same name as this presentation, Can You Handle the Truth? It's only a few hundred words, and I'd like to read this to you so you can get a flavor as to where I'm coming from. One of the things that I've noticed is that everyone has a problem with the truth. I don't mean we walk around lying all the time, but you're always afraid of hurting someone's feelings or becoming entangled in some sort of confrontation with the person we're speaking with or even the person that we're living with. Sometimes we are concerned about someone's reaction, so we bend the truth or poke around trying to figure out what that person wants to hear. It really starts to become a problem in personal relationships when couples are afraid to make their desires known for fear of a breakup or a divorce. People can have a problem with the truth on the job, like when a supervisor might worry about an employee's reaction to a poor performance evaluation. In education, a teacher might be worried about a student's or parent's reaction, and then could easily award grades that are not in line with the student's performance. When I was in high school, my guidance counselor called me down to his office and pulled out my grades. He said, "What do you want to do when you're through with high school?" I told him that I didn't know, and then in the next breath, thinking that I had to tell him something other than the truth, that I wanted to be a bartender, I told him I wanted to be a lawyer. "A lawyer," he said, pointing to my grades. "These are not lawyer grades. If I were you, I would start to think about doing something else." I walked out of his office and wasn't the least bit offended. I didn't even think about going home and telling my father that my guidance counselor said I wasn't smart enough to be a lawyer. I never said one word to my father. You know what? The guy had actually told me the truth, and the truth really did set me free. I started to think honestly and look honestly at my abilities. I was able to acknowledge that I hadn't worked hard academically for my first 3 years of high school. I started to think about my future realistically. My guidance counselor made me take a hard look in the mirror and come to terms with what my abilities and my attitude really were. He told me the truth, and I appreciated that. Well, in 1977, my father sold the bar, and I became a teacher that same year. You know, I really enjoyed teaching. I was a special educator, so I didn't always have the cream of the crop when it came to my students. In fact, my students usually had the worst behavior problems in the school and could really get to me on some days. But overall, I developed a relationship with the kids, and things seemed to actually go pretty well. As I progressed in my career, I noticed that things were changing. I was expected to put up with more and more behavior problems, and everyone was giving me some excuse for a kid's deviance. The catchphrase that seemed to be in vogue about 20 years ago was, "I really like this kid, but I don't like his behavior." Was this the truth? I don't think so. It's possible to like someone and not like their behavior. Is it? The truth is, we don't like the person because of his behavior, and people need to be made aware of this in a considerate way. A person is his behavior, and the two can't be separated. I can give you the names of people who are well known in society for absolute deviance, and you tell me if you like them, but not their behavior. Charles Manson, Scott Peterson, Jeffrey Dahmer, or maybe Adolf Hitler. Can anyone like their behavior but still like them as people? No, we don't like them, period. The perception we have of a person is based on his behavior. If the behavior is not likable, we'll probably not like the person. People need to know that if their behavior doesn't change, then others won't want to develop meaningful relationships with them and ultimately won't like them. And this is a scary point. Recently, a student came into my office while I was working as an interim principal and discussed with me what he wanted to do after he finished high school. He wanted to be a doctor, which is a terrific goal for a young person. Well, I asked him what he scored on his SATs, and he told me that he scored about a 400 on each section. I was thinking in my mind that a perfect score is 800 on each section, and a decent score would be 650 or 700. I knew something right then and there. He wasn't going to be my doctor. I proceeded to pull his grades out and find that his math and science grades were C's and D's. And you know, I wanted to respond with the same question that my guidance counselor asked me. Do these look like doctor's grades? But based upon the culture and society's norms, I couldn't ask that question. I immediately directed the student to the entry requirements that colleges have for their pre-med programs and ultimately medical school. He discovered the truth on his own and came back to me and thanked me. Yes, he thanked me for helping him realize that his study skills needed improvement and that he needed to take and retake the college boards. The truth made him aware of his own weaknesses and how much harder he was going to have to work in order to achieve his goals. Society seems to want to withhold the truth and make everyone believe that they are smarter than what they are, and their behavior is based upon circumstance, their environment, or lack of therapy or medication. Facing the truth about my abilities and my work ethic put me on track, helped me choose a good vocation, and helped me to understand how I needed to improve my work ethic. Subsequently, instead of floating through life unsuccessfully from one job to another, I worked hard in college, graduate school, and then as an employee. So the next time your kids come home and tell you that their teacher told them that they had to work harder, that their work or behavior is unacceptable, or they better consider going to a community college rather than Dartmouth, thank that teacher for doing something that is a rarity today, speaking the truth. It really doesn't matter how we get to the truth, as long as we get there. My guidance counselor was straightforward with me 40 years ago. I knew that by today's standards, that my journey getting to the truth would have to be done with a little more sensitivity. It still worked, and the desired result was achieved. Now, you can get an idea about what I'm trying to communicate here. And that is, we have a difficult time speaking the truth to our students. And, you know, there's a lot of reasons why. We don't tell the truth to our students, and we basically lie to them. We fear a lot of different things. We might fear the kid in general because of his attitude. We fear a reaction from the parents. We fear administration, who are going to confront us because we possibly failed a kid. And we don't, at times, we don't know what the truth really is. And in other words, what is this kid's potential? Is he lazy? Is he disrespectful? Can he do it? Or does he have some condition that gets in the way of his academic performance? Now, I've covered this before, but I'm going to cover it again. Okay, we fear a reaction of another person. When we fear it, anytime we fear it, okay, we will do one of three things. We're either going to lie, we're going to con the person, you know, kind of like get them schmoozed and like try to sell ice to an Eskimo, or we're going to withhold information that we know is going to cause a reaction. Three very dangerous ways of dealing with a person that we don't want to tell the truth to. Because ultimately we're going to be found out. And I can remember John Bradshaw years ago. He was one of the pioneers in dealing with adult children of alcoholics. And his comment in one of his books was, lying only produces future pain. And I agree with that. So the more truth we speak, the better off we're going to be. Now, fearing students, okay, what we have to understand, it's not the student that we fear. Okay, it really is the parent. And we have to be aware. I mean, when I was an administrator years ago, I'd get discipline referrals sent down to me. And what would happen is I'd look at the referral and I wasn't so concerned about the kid that was on the referral. I was more concerned about who the parent was. And if we're working with little kids, and even if you're a parent right now and you have young children at home, you have to figure out what you're going to do when that kid says no, so that we can discipline this kid correctly using the truth and maintaining a good attitude. Now, sometimes we do end up fearing the parents, but what we don't understand is that that parent fears their own children. And this is where we have to begin to understand our own imprint. And a parent needs to understand their own imprint. You see, we're only a compilation of what people have said to us and what people have done to us. So what we want to be aware of is, why do we have this fear? Is it because we were yelled at when we were 5 years old and we never overcame that fear? And if in fact that's the truth, we have to delve very deeply into our own heart and soul and make the decision that I fear confrontations, and I certainly have to get over it if I'm going to be able to deal with things in life and on my job. Sometimes we can fear administration. And I've said this before, sometimes administrators can hide behind their position. Sometimes they're under such pressure that they're emotionally unstable and they have a very mercurial attitude and behavior. I mean, there were some administrators that I worked for, when things were tough, you couldn't even talk to them. And then the next day you would come in and they would be all smiles and they'd be talking to you. You never got a real handle on where this person was coming from. And poor leaders have this ability to instill fear into their subordinates. And what we have to do is we have to stay within ourselves and we have to concentrate on what our job is, and we have to work to make sure that the school is successful and our students are successful. See, if we have fears, all we can do is do what's right and speak the truth. And those fears will slowly drift away. There was a movie that I saw many years ago. It was called Nobody's Fool with Paul Newman. And he had a grandson that had a whole host of fears. And Paul Newman's comment to his grandson was, you only have to be brave for 2 minutes at a time. And he gave this child a stopwatch. And when things came up that this child was afraid of, what he would do is he would start the stopwatch and he would say, just for 2 minutes. That's all I have to do is 2 minutes. And that helped him overcome a lot of the fears that he had. Sometimes we have a crummy habit. Okay, and these habits get developed over time because we have always beaten around the bush and never really shared what we needed to share in terms of the truth. We've become situational reactive liars. Sometimes it didn't matter when we were younger if we told the truth or if we lied. We still got a reaction from someone. Often we don't share the truth because we have this feeling that we always have to impress others. And then sometimes we get to a point in our life where we don't know what the truth is. and everything that we say is either twisted or embellished or whatever the case may be. We have to learn how to speak the truth to our students moving forward, and as parents we have to speak the truth to our children. And it doesn't matter if they tantrum, doesn't matter if they react. We have to become better at speaking the truth. We have to work with our children to develop the ability to cooperate when they disagree, and when they do disagree, to have the right attitude. These are all very important behaviors and attitudes that we have to have as we move into the with the next generation of students. So as you move forward, understand that the truth may hurt, but the truth will ultimately set you free.